Host of DawgNation Daily, the daily podcast for Georgia Bulldogs fans. Glad to have you with us. Busy show for us today. A lot of it going to center around UGA recruiting. Obviously, five-star linebacker Owen Pappoe has set his announcement date. We'll talk about that. Jeff Sentell on the program, and we'll continue to get ready for DawgNation Appreciation. I am legitimately excited about it. It has been so thrilling to see so many of you excited about it as well. Can't wait for us to all get together on Thursday. We'll talk more about that in the days ahead. But for now, DawgNation Daily begins right now.
Presented by DawgNation.com, this is DawgNation Daily, the daily podcast for Georgia Bulldogs fans. Here's your host, Brandon Adams.
DawgNation Daily is a thrilling show to be able to do every single day, but one of the most fun things that we've been able to do here on our program over the last few weeks was having Roquan Smith, the Georgia linebacker, the former Georgia linebacker, the Butkus Award winner, on the show a few days ago. And obviously everybody knows what Roquan was able to do for Georgia this season, even in the midst of a defense that was terrific, that brought a lot to the table. Roquan in himself was sort of his own one-man gang. And, you know, Georgia gets to the college football playoff in 2017 in large measure because of just how outsized the performance Roquan Smith brought to the table each and every week. And obviously with him gone, as we've said now many times here on DawgNation Daily, the thought has kind of gone to, okay, who fills that void? You know, as the old country song says, who's going to fill those shoes? You know, who's going to be able to step in there and do for Georgia's defense in future years what Roquan Smith got done in 2017? And as college football fans are very well aware, there's no guarantee that it's going to be anyone. There's no guarantee that Georgia will ever have a performance in a single season the way that one linebacker did, the way that Roquan Smith did. But with Georgia, the recruiting power that it is, the hope is that there will be guys who can step in here, whether it's guys from the 2018 team or beyond. And one of the really fun things about having Roquan Smith on DawgNation Daily the other day was I was able to ask him, hey, you saw some of the Georgia linebackers that you were your teammates in 2017. You know who's still here for 2018. Who do you think the next Roquan Smith might be? Who's going to step in and provide some of what you gave Georgia in 2017? And I thought Roquan Smith gave a pretty interesting answer to that.
There's a lot of special guys back there right now. I'm looking for a lot of competition to be going on this upcoming spring because all those guys have great skill sets from Nate Trez. He's one of the leaders of the linebacker room. Then you have guy like Tate Crowder, Monty Rice, then, you know, Jaden McBride. So it's a lot of guys there, man, that has a chance to definitely make some plays this upcoming year. So I'm definitely thinking it'll be a rotation or anything like that because all those guys have some special skill sets.
So you hear Roquan Smith sort of rattle off some of the names that were teammates of his in 2017 about who he thinks might be able to contribute in 2018. And while I don't know this for sure, what I do feel relatively confident in saying is that Roquan Smith is probably certainly an expert on the guys that he played with, but he may not be a recruiting expert. He may not be listening to Jeff Sentell every time that Jeff's here with us on DawgNation Daily. So a name like Channing Tindall, who's an incoming freshman for 2018, that might not be a name that Roquan Smith's all that familiar with as of yet. He may have brushed into him at some point in time, but maybe he doesn't know Tindall all that well, but obviously a guy like Tindall is someone that a lot of us think of as kind of fitting the bill of that Roquan-style athlete, a guy who may, in his Georgia career, slide over and play the inside linebacker position and be able to do some of the things that Roquan Smith has done. He may start doing some of that as a freshman in 2018. Another name that also has sort of gotten the next Roquan Smith tab is a non-committed player for the class of 2019, one of the top prospects in the entire country, who just so happens to play his high school football at Grayson High School, not too far from UGA's Athens campus. Of course, I'm talking about the five-star linebacker Owen Pappoe. Pappoe is a central figure in today's show because of what Pappoe puts out on social media. In fact, if you're watching, we'll show you the tweet. Obviously, if you're listening, you may have already seen this anyway. Owen Pappoe, the five-star linebacker, says, I will be announcing my commitment on May 5th. And the first thought that I had when I read that tweet from Owen Pappoe, who really has gotten a lot of these, this is the next Roquan Smith, type linebacker. This is the next guy in the SEC that's going to do some of the stuff that Roquan Smith did. When you see that date pop up there on Twitter, May 5th, you realize that, oh, this may end up being a date very similar to what June 27th was a year ago, for those of you that followed the class of 2018, when five-star running back Zamir White on June 27th of last year made his commitment announcement. It was that date in the summertime that we'd sort of had circled for a long time, and seemingly every day we were talking about June 27th and what was going to happen with Zamir on here on DawgNation Daily. And for Owen Pappoe, that May 5th date is going to be very much the same thing. We've obviously got G-Day and a lot of things to think about between now and then. DawgNation Appreciation, not the least of that. But May 5th is going to become a huge, huge day on the calendar for Georgia fans as they look in at Owen Pappoe's decision. Does he choose UGA? And in doing so, does he set the stage to maybe become the next Roquan Smith for the Dogs? Of course, it's also worth pointing out here that in terms of Owen Pappoe being the next Roquan Smith-style linebacker in the SEC, it's apparently not just Georgia who thinks that's a possibility. Let me introduce you to Benjamin Wolk here, who you know as the guy who covers Auburn recruiting for SECCountry.com. When Ben was on DawgNation Daily a few days ago, he said that it's a similar role in which Auburn sort of fashions for Owen Pappoe as well. Here's Ben Wolk.
He did visit Auburn February 3rd for their junior day, and that was when he left that was when he was saying that he needs to rearrange his top three because Auburn needs to be in there. And I've spoken with him subsequently, and he said, yeah, Auburn's really up there in that number 2 spot. I mean, Georgia still clearly is number 1 school. But what they preached to him was, one, Kevin Steele and Travis Williams like all their linebackers to know all 3 of their linebacker spots. I mean, you see it. They run so many 2 and 3 different linebacker sets that they like all 3 of their guys. I mean, they have 3 starters right now, really, Montavious Atkinson, or last year, Montavious Atkinson, Trey Williams, Deshaun Davis, and then really Darrell Williams as well, who will fill in that Trey Williams role this year. And all 3 of them did, all 3 different things at linebacker. The one thing that Travis Williams and Kevin Steele preached to Owen Pappoe at Junior Day was that they want to see more film of him at inside backer, sort of doing that Roquan Smith type of role.
So kind of interesting there from Benjamin Wolk that what Auburn is preaching to Roquan Smith right now may be actually a similar sort of sales pitch that he's getting from Georgia here. And, certainly Owen Pappoe has certainly, been impressed with Auburn coming off that visit. I think he moved him in was number 2 spot here publicly. Obviously, he still thought it was a public lean towards Georgia, but Auburn right there in that number 2 spot. And the pitch from Auburn may be similar to the pitch that he's getting from the University of Georgia. Let me let you hear it now a little bit more from Benjamin Wolk about those pitches. The one from Georgia, the one from Auburn, and what's getting Owen Pappoe's attention right now.
I think the world of Owen as a player and just as a person and a recruit. I know that Auburn does as well, and that's why they've made a serious push over the last month. I'm actually in the minority in this. I think this is going to come down to a Georgia-Auburn battle because of his relationship with Travis Williams, even though I know that Clemson's in this, and he released the top 3 at one point with Clemson and Nebraska, and that there have been some other schools in the mix. I mean, I think that he is clearly Georgia's to lose, and I think that that's where he lands. But I think that this does become a Georgia-Auburn battle down the stretch.
What I think is kind of interesting therein, first of all, he says that he still thinks he's Georgia's to lose. That echoes the sentiments, I think, of a lot of the recruiting public, including Jeff Sentell, who we'll have here on DawgNation Daily in just a moment. But in the list of other schools kind of mentioned, the one that he does not state by name is Tennessee. Of course, it wasn't that long ago that Owen Pappoe took a visit to the University of Tennessee, along with a lot of his high school teammates, including Wanya Morris, who just included, I'm talking about the offensive lineman Morris, who just included Tennessee in his top 2. I think on video here we have a shot we can show you Pappoe doing like a lot of these recruits do. He's wearing the Tennessee uniform. Ironic that it's the smoky gray uniform, a uniform that Jeremy Pruitt said they're not going to wear anymore in 2018. But Owen Pappoe says home, ? And then tags Wanya Morris, his high school teammate from Grayson, who is thought to be leaning the direction of Tennessee right there. Also, it wasn't all that long ago as well that in some availability with some reporters and some media, Owen Pappoe, the 5-star linebacker, also talked about what he liked about the head coach of the Tennessee Vols, Jeremy Pruitt. Here is Owen Pappoe again.
Well, the proof is in the pudding. You can just look at all the players he's coached in the past, and just look at the things that that he helped did at Alabama. So things like that helped me have interest in him. Well, the proof.
So the bottom line for me on the entire discussion is whether it be the push in the overture from Tennessee here, the strong connection that Pappoe apparently has with Auburn, not to mention a program like Clemson, I think that what Benjamin Wolk said a moment ago is probably true. I still think that Georgia is the leader for Owen Pappoe. I expect May 5th to be good news for the Dogs, but listen, it's also one of those decisions that Georgia fans are going to hold their breath for just a little bit because they know the stakes are high here. In terms of uncommitted players, the class of 2019, as Georgia makes a push for the number 1 class in the country one more time, there are few more talented than Pappoe. There are few who fit a more obvious sort of void in the Georgia roster like Pappoe, who very much one day could be very much like another Roquan Smith. This is a big potential get for Georgia. I think it's eventually good news, but Georgia fans will be holding their breath until they ultimately get a chance to celebrate coming up on May 5th. My name is Brandon Adams. This is DawgNation Daily, the daily podcast for Georgia Bulldogs fans. Thank you so much for being with us. If you're watching us on video, of course, you can check us out at the DawgNation Facebook page and DawgNation on YouTube. Of course, we do the show live for you each and every morning at 10 a.m. We love being on the radio with our friends in Athens on Athens Sports Radio 960 The Ref and in podcast form, whether it be Apple Podcasts, the Android devices. We post the show at the world-famous DawgNation.com. We are really glad that you are finding the podcast and with us here today for DawgNation Daily. Of course, we're getting really excited about DawgNation Appreciation. Comes up on Thursday, March 15th. That's this week. That's really just, 2 days from right now at the Coca-Cola Roxy Theater, Battery, Atlanta. You can go to DawgNation.com, tab at the top of the page, get in there and get your tickets before they are gone, and we are selling a bunch of these here. A lot of folks decided to be sort of last-minute purchasers, and so I keep getting updates, tickets flying off the shelves here. There are a few left, and you can get them. What there aren't any left of, though, are our VIP tickets. They sold out almost immediately. That's why our friends from Marlowe's Tavern are doing something really cool. They're giving away a pair. You can simply text the word Marlowe's, that's M-A-R-L-O-W-S, to 24242. That number, once again, 24242. Between now and really at the end of the day today is when it closes. The announcement for the winner is tomorrow at noon. So you got to get in registered today. This is the last day to get in on that. Winner drawn tomorrow. That's March 14th at noon. So text in, get your registration in, and get ready to do all of that. I'll also say this, one more deadline that's approaching. Yesterday, I reached out to you about submitting your special thank you videos. If you want to be included in our DawgNation Appreciation event on the program, on the stage, on the screen, your own thank you message to Nick Chubb, Sony Michel, Roquan Smith, Davin Bellamy, Lorenzo Carter. You want to let them know what this season meant to you. You can send us a short video either to the DawgNation Twitter or DawgNation on Instagram. That's at DawgNation on both those social mediums. You can also email the video if that's easier for you, DawgNationSocial@gmail.com. I will tell you that I'm doing this show live right now on a Tuesday morning. We got to get these in by really like lunchtime today to have a chance to have these on the stage on Thursday. So hit us up at DawgNation on Instagram or at DawgNation on Twitter, or send the email to DawgNationSocial@gmail.com. Your special thank you video. Try to keep it short for the players who are going to be there for DawgNation Appreciation. If you can't be with us that night, this is a great way to make sure these great former Georgia players hear your message to them. And I think that's going to be a really cool thing to do. All right, Jeff Sentell coming up in a moment. Before that, let me do a little bit more recruiting before we get to Jeff on this, because there was one thought that I had coming off the weekend that kind of reminded me of something that Kirby Smart had said back on National Signing Day in February. Now, y'all know, sometimes Kirby Smart sort of says the things publicly that he feels like a tough, stern coach has to say. I'm not telling you he doesn't mean it, but I think sometimes we know that there's an air that you have to put on if you want to be the head coach at a place like Georgia, especially when passions run so deep on the part of the fans and the media coverage is so extensive the way that it is for Georgia. You've got to have a certain persona. And so Georgia's the number one class for 2018. That's a big deal to people who do what I do for a living, people who listen to or watch a show like this every single day. But Kirby Smart wanted to be made known that being number one in recruiting and all those 4 and 5 stars, that's not too big of a deal to him. Here's how he explained it back on National Signing Day in February.
Obviously, I'm excited about the class, and I know all you guys want to talk about the ranking. That really does not float my boat or the staff's boat. I don't think that's what's important. What's more important is the quality of kids we were able to get, both academically and athletically. That's what excites me most about them. The fact that 10 of these guys got over a 3.0 core GPA, we haven't had that in a long time. The fact that 3 of these guys got offered scholarships to Ivy League schools, that impresses me a lot. 25 of these 26 play multiple sports. And I think we all know the indicators of playing multiple sports. 13 of the 26 play for a state championship. So when you start looking at those things, they're winners.
So when I hear that quote from Kirby Smart from back on National Signing Day, that putting the academics aside here for a moment, saying that I like guys who play multiple sports and I like guys who win state championships. Well, if that's the case, then Kirby Smart must really like Trayvon Walker, the big defensive tackle who Jeff Sentell and I both, on a recent episode of DawgNation Daily, said that might be Georgia's most important pursuit here for its class of 2019 of uncommitted prospects, with all due respect to Owen Pappoe. It very, very well may be that Trayvon Walker is the most important need for Georgia. He's a great defensive tackle, huge position of need for Georgia. And as Kirby Smart said, I also like guys who are athletic enough to play multiple sports and strong enough leaders and winners to win state championships. Well, Walker for Upson Lee, an undefeated team, by the way, that just beat St. Pius in a state championship game in basketball over the weekend. According to MaxPreps.com, he averaged 12.4 points per game, 11.7 rebounds per game for Upson Lee. There was some video of him on social media getting a big block shot. Pretty athletic defensive tackle, another reason to be excited about the class of 2019 and the potential addition of Trayvon Walker. My assumption is Kirby Smart likes him just fine. It's going to be Jeff Sentell for our Marlowe's Tavern Tell-All coming up in just a moment. Before that, let me also remind you that DawgNation Daily is brought to you in part today by our friends at MyBookie. You know, we're coming up on that time of year where the hoops is all over the place. That's why you want to be thinking about MyBookie, because you can enter for a chance to win their $1 Million Bracket Challenge. You can also get bets down on some of these games that are going to be taking place throughout the month of March into April. Just simply use the promo code DawgNation. You can get your first deposit matched up to 50%. The website to go to is mybookie.ag. The promo code to use is DawgNation. You play, you win, you get paid. It's as simple as that. It's the website and the promo code to remember during this time of year as you become a big winner. Use the promo code DawgNation, 50% bonus. The website mybookie.ag. You play, you win, you get paid. It's as simple as that with MyBookie. Good to have you with us here today on DawgNation Daily, and hope you enjoy Jeff Sentell right now. And we'll get Jeff Sentell here coming up in just a moment. And while we were waiting on Jeff, I'm also going to have to get my laptop figured out here a little bit. Every now and then it just kind of freezes up on me. All right, Jeff is ready to go. I'm going to ask Jeff to hold off just for 1 second, though. Let me see if I can get there. We go. All right, let me pull this up, and we'll get ready to bring in Jeff Sentell today on DawgNation Daily. Good to have you with us. A lot of fun. Hope you enjoy Jeff right now.
From Athens and across the SEC or wherever the recruiting trail may lead, here's a DawgNation.com insider.
And it's time for our Marlowe's Tavern Tell-All with Jeff Sentell here on DawgNation Daily. And, you know, this spring, Marlowe's digging a little deeper and kind of what goes on behind the scenes there at Marlowe's. We'll look forward to telling you a lot about that with our Marlowe's Tavern Tell-All every Tuesday here on DawgNation Daily. For instance, did you know that Marlowe's executive chef was trained by the CIA? That's right. The executive chef, the co-founder of Marlowe's, John Metz, not a government operative, but he was trained, as I said, by the CIA. What I mean by that is the Culinary Institute of America. Just one of the cool things to know about Marlowe's Tavern. And that's one of the reasons why we say chef-inspired food at Marlowe's. We do truly mean chef-inspired, including a great executive chef who's got the highest level of training you can get in the industry. Jeff Sentell, good morning. Welcome to the Marlowe's Tavern Tell-All here on DawgNation Daily. How you doing today?
Brandon, man, I'm great, sir. I hope everything's great with you.
It is really good, and obviously I got a lot of recruiting stuff I want to talk to you about, but you wrote a little piece at the forum yesterday, and I hope folks every day are checking out the forum at forum.dawgnation.com. It's a place not only to sort of interact with each other, a lot of DawgNation, but also hear from you on a very regular basis. And before we get into the serious recruiting stuff in terms of, the on-field stuff, you had something on your mind there on the forum, and you wanted to have a moment to express this here today as well also.
Yeah, Brandon, I guess we can call this kind of the Marlowe's Tell-All Recruit of the Day, and I got one for everybody from Lambert High School in the Suwannee, Forsyth County area, I guess. Now, he was a 0-star offensive lineman, undersized, smart kid, head on a swivel, and now he's a 50-star recruit, I'm going to call him, in the U.S. Army Infantry. He doesn't run a 4.4 in the 40. But I've been told he can carry a 100-pound rucksack across about 14 miles in 3 hours and 30 minutes. Now, his name is Jack Eustace. He's on his first deployment in Afghanistan, and he comes from a family that I feel kind of deserves to be called a member of DawgNation, if any family out there does. His older brother, Monroe, is a UGA grad. He's also a second lieutenant in the U.S. Air Force. Their mom attended UGA during the glory days of the Herschel years. So I guess you would say that this family is an equal mix of proud and terrified because Jack is out there serving in one of the most dangerous places that Americans go out to. His training is superb, and he's been described to me as someone who has a superpower for sleeping out in the cold. And just really wanted to just share this kid's story and his guy's name. They're huge Georgia fans. To me, Brandon, I think DawgNation is more than just blind squirrels, 5-star QBs, funny Florida jokes, and everything else like that. So, Jack Eustace, that's going to be my recruit of the day. That is a U.S. Army recruit. He's out there in Afghanistan, and to me, Brandon, I would think you should probably reconsider that Charles Baxter stuff and go for Jack Eustace. BA, that's quick, that's punchy, 3 syllables. The one last thing I'll say about this is that I don't know if anybody out there believes in the power of prayer, or just sharing a good word for somebody who certainly deserves our attention. We talk a lot about a lot of 18 to 22-year-olds on this show, and I just thought Jack Eustace was somebody I wanted everybody out there in DawgNation to know about as well. If anybody wants to write him, like my family's going to write him, there's an address for him out there on the DawgNation message board.
Yeah, check that out, forum.dawgnation.com. And, Jeff, I know you feel the same way that I do, that, what we do here, it's great to know that for some people who, find themselves in harm's way from time to time, serving our country overseas, oftentimes we hear they're checking in with DawgNation.com, either reading the stuff or listening, watching some of our content. And, Jeff, there are obviously bigger things going on in the world other than the college football that I obviously love and care about so much. And, sending out prayers, sending out good vibes and good thoughts. I think that's a very appropriate thing to be doing. I really appreciate you bringing that up.
I think, Brandon, I think sometimes the best of sports kind of intertwined with service to our country, the B-52 bomber or the stealth bomber that was flying above the Rose Bowl. And I was just kind of thinking, we got so many ways to share information across DawgNation, and this young man's story is certainly more than deserving to bring to everybody's attention, because a lot of people think that, this is just coverage of an athletics department. But if you've been around Brandon and I when we're out in the public, we really kind of consider it as a big-time community of kind of like-minded individuals. We all kind of share the same times in life. I think Jack Eustace, Georgia boy out there in Afghanistan right now, really, really deserves all the support and thanks that we can muster for his service and his commitment to the country.
Yeah, that's well said, Jeff. And if you don't mind, we'll turn our attention to some of the recruiting that's going on. As you might imagine, I'm sure you're not surprised to find out we've spent a good bit of our time so far today talking about the 5-star linebacker Owen Pappoe. I have said that May 5th now is going to ring for a lot of people the way that June 27th did a year ago. Everyone had that date circled for the 5-star running back for the class of 2018, Zamir White. I think Owen Pappoe is a similar type prospect, even though it's a different position here for the class of 2019. And May 5th is one of those dates that I guess you and I will probably talk about every day between now and May the 5th. I would imagine that you're right on board in terms of the Pappoe decision when it comes down being a monstrous one for Georgia or the school that Owen chooses.
I guess it would be called Cinco de Pappoe Mayo or something like that.
I like that. Cinco de Pappoe.
I think a lot of people have kind of gravitated towards that online. It's May the 5th. I've been told that Owen kind of doesn't really know what he's doing yet in terms of May the 5th and how he will express his commitment. And it does sound like Georgia and Auburn. But I think May the 5th is a day, and kind of like we've been hinting about for a little bit, I expect a lot of those Grayson major prospects in Grayson to make their decisions sooner rather than later when it comes to their senior seasons and chasing a championship. And I don't know if in this day and age, especially with the early signing period, I think folks should maybe pump the brakes on their fears about these boys committing early because a May the 5th commitment is only going to be 7 months before Owen Pappoe would sign with the school of his choice because he's going to enroll early.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And we were talking about before, on the day you were on vacation, we had Ben Wolk here on DawgNation Daily, and he was kind of explaining to us what the pitch was from Auburn. Of course, Pappoe was impressed by Auburn the last time he took a visit there, and it sounds like what they're saying to him, Jeff, is a little bit similar to what Georgia's saying, that obviously Georgia sees Owen Pappoe as an inside linebacker. It sounds like Auburn kind of likes the idea of him doing some Roquan Smith type stuff there. It seems like that the two pitches from the two schools are pretty similar here. Obviously, the one thing that Georgia has going forward, among a lot of things, the fact that Pappoe has visited Georgia so much going back to the 2017 season, though, I guess.
Yeah, Pappoe's at Georgia quite a lot, and it got kind of cozy with Georgia. I don't know, probably started getting really cozy around October, November of last year. It's kind of funny, though. Auburn's kind of the underdog in this one because when he established his top three, it included Clemson and Nebraska in that top three. And here comes Auburn, and that's all because of Travis Williams. Everybody calls him T-Will. Probably doesn't get his due as much around SEC country as he should. If I had to think about the 10 best recruiters in the Southeastern Conference, I think Travis Williams definitely belongs along that list. Lots of good vibes. Really relates well to a lot of the players would be considering Auburn. And Pappoe, you got to remember, about 6 foot, about 215 pounds. Going to be a tad undersized to play in the middle at Georgia, but he brings so much speed and athleticism to the table. Owen was a guy, remember, he got his offer from Georgia in the mid-varsity term. That is in between his middle school and freshman year at Grayson High. And if you got to count back that a lot of ways, that's actually 2015 when he got his first UGA offer. So Georgia was one of the first in on Owen, and he's a guy, has a chance this summer, which kind of seems like a 3-foot putt chance to me for it to be the first 3-time participant in the Nike Opening. Pappoe, explosive. I remember back to his freshman year when I really knew he was big time, when he was averaging double-digit tackles for Grayson along the playoff run before they won the championship 2 years ago. Owen's a guy, I guess you could kind of go hither or thither or there about whether it's him or it's Travon Walker as maybe the biggest remaining target for Georgia. One thing to consider, Brandon, and this will probably show up on the intel soon, is I know folks like to compare Georgia and Alabama and Georgia, especially now, especially considering the past, present, and future of that rivalry. Georgia signed 7 5-stars last year. If they can get to 6 5-stars in 2019, that would be the record in the modern recruiting era for the most 5-stars over a 2-year period.
Wow.
Because Alabama's done 6-packs a lot back-to-back, and if Georgia can get to 13 with 6 more in the class of 2019, then they would accomplish something that Alabama hasn't done as well. And that would also mean that if Pappoe did choose Georgia, and he did name his leader in Ben Wolk's excellent reporting of a week ago after his Auburn visit, that would already be 4 for Georgia in 2019 on the road to that 6-pack for 2019.
Yeah, that's quite a thought to think about. You mentioned Travon Walker a moment ago. We also talked about him a brief second before you came on the show, because Kirby on National Signing Day said, I like guys who play multiple sports. I like guys who win state championships. Well, my guess is Kirby Smart probably already likes Travon Walker, but seeing Walker doing some big things for the Upson Lee basketball team that just went undefeated, won a state championship, knocked off St. Pius the other night, my guess is for Kirby Smart, that's maybe more reasons to like Travon Walker, because the sort of athletic footwork that you think of elite defensive tackles having, you know, a little bit quicker than their offensive lineman counterparts usually. Walker seems to be showing some of that on the basketball floor, does he not?
He does, and he got a little attitude, I guess, a little bit in the state finals, because he's a guy that 10 points, 12 rebounds, about 4 blocks, very physical post defender for an Upson Lee team that has won 2 consecutive state basketball titles. And I think Walker's going to check off another box for you, Brandon, because he's a 3-sport athlete. He's done some track for Upson Lee as well. Just everything that you could ever ask for in a defensive edge prospect, a defensive end, defensive tackle. Now, your eyes sit there and you look at Travon and you say, okay, 6'5", 260 already and still in high school and hanging out, you know, walking around halls that have school buses that take kids there. You start thinking, well, that gentleman's just going to be an inside interior defender. But Travon, if you see him out in space on the basketball court, see him making plays, 36-inch vertical, thinks he can run about a 4.6, 4.7 40 when he's tested at the opening and have the size and the length to be an edge defender anywhere in the country.
Yeah, I think that's quite a thought to think about. You mentioned track and field a moment ago. Obviously down in Florida, Anthony Schwartz, the Auburn signing, he's kind of turning the most heads. He's legitimately a very fast guy. But the Georgia signing, the 5-star cornerback Tyson Campbell, he's no slouch himself, right? He's put up some pretty impressive sprinting totals lately. I know you've written about this at DawgNation.com, and it's sort of more reason for Georgia fans, I think, to be excited about Tyson Campbell, who I think when he enters college is going to enter in very much a way already kind of a finished product there as a cornerback. He's still got things to learn, of course, but this is a guy who kind of comes in with a pretty innate ability, does he not?
It's kind of crazy, Brandon. I think he would definitely at 6'2.5", him and Amir Speed would probably be the biggest cornerbacks that Georgia would have on the roster. But then you add in 10.39 speed in the 100-meter dash. Kirby Smart even said it himself. He doesn't He said it would probably be the fastest guy on the team, and that's saying a lot because there's a track superstar turned football player in Eric Stokes, who's only about 5'11", 6 feet tall. That's also on the Georgia team. But Tyson Campbell, 6'2.5", 185. Grit, a lot of determination to him. Continuing to get faster, and it's kind of funny. He doesn't seem to be thinking about running track in college, where like Anthony Schwartz is going to be a game breaker for Auburn, but he's also going to run college track. And he's putting world record times for youth up in the 100 and 200. And if you look at some of that video we have on DawgNation.com, you have Anthony Schwartz, kind of like the Flash in that new TV series, streaking across the screen or across the lens, and he's running 10.3s, 10.2s, and 10.1s. And then you got Tyson Campbell motoring along in 10.39.
Yeah.
And these are just really fast men who also, Campbell's kind of a football player who runs track, whereas I think Schwartz might be the opposite. Another great signee for Georgia. He's one of those 7 5-stars in 2018. And I know, Brandon, you will definitely be interested to see what he looks like should he hit the field in that Austin Peay game.
Oh, yeah, there's no question about that. I want to finish the question about Jake Fromm. Before that, though, let me travel on some sort of kind of traveled ground for you and me. You know how I feel about Gwinnett County. It's a county that I think that Georgia needs to be heavily involved with. I mean, take a school like North Gwinnett, for instance. Just off the top of my head, this is a power program that sent players recently to South Carolina, Missouri, Miami, Georgia Tech, kind of on and on you could go, but not probably enough of those, ending up at Georgia here as of late, even though they produce big-time FBS prospects every single year. With that in mind, I found it pretty fascinating what you wrote about at DawgNation, that recently 3 members of the North Gwinnett secondary have gotten Georgia offers. A couple of them had it for a while. Now all 3 kind of in there, DJ Turner, Quentin Newsome, Warren Burrell. So Georgia getting involved in a program like North Gwinnett, the reigning state champion, the kind of place that if you can set up shop in Swanee there, you can get some players over the course of the years, because they certainly produce enough.
I think if you could take the 5 best players out of Gwinnett County every year and put them on the University of Georgia roster, then that would field a lot of top 3, top 5, number 1 ranked recruiting classes for the Bulldogs going on years and years. And kind of interesting, DJ Turner was the highest rated of those 3 fellas, but he was the last one to receive his offer. His offer came, I think, about 6 or 7 days after Warren Burrell and Quentin Newsome got their offers from Georgia. You're talking about a 4-star corner in DJ Turner the second. He's got lots of offers, Alabama, Clemson. Burrell might be the playmaker of the group. He's the one that had 5 interceptions last year and kind of held the title junior season at least as the lockdown defender. And DJ Turner was probably the lockdown corner during his sophomore season in North Gwinnett. Then there's this other guy, Quentin Newsome, 6'2", 180 pounds. Kind of that hybrid safety. Is he a safety? Is he a corner? Can he match up anywhere? When you look at Georgia's defense, they have a lot of zone and man-to-man concepts that they kind of switch in and out of with their base defense and what they do with their multiple fronts and their coverage patterns. So I think interchangeable players with length and size and speed are kind of click on a lot of things Georgia is looking for with their defensive backs. And the natural question, Brandon, people have already asked me, is there any way that Georgia takes all 3 of those guys from North Gwinnett? And the odds right there are pretty long, but the odds aren't much worse than Georgia offering 3 teammates in the same grade, in the same secondary, at the same high school, in the same month of a calendar year. That kind of just doesn't happen. It's funny, you ask the folks at North Gwinnett, when's the last time they had 3 players with Georgia offers, and they can't even recollect when that might be, much less 3 players who basically play some of the same positions on their defense.
All right, let me finish our Marlowe's Tavern tell-all, Jeff, with a question about Jake Fromm, who, as college spring break begins, Fromm, there was some video on the internet of him kind of doing some quarterback work, working with a personal coach there, getting some footwork drills, and obviously, listen, my respect for Fromm is well-founded here, but this is just another example of the kind of hard work that he's sort of putting in each and every day. And for a guy that emerged as the starting quarterback for 2017, it also, I think, is a bit of a foreshadow that he's not intending to let go of his grip on that starting job anytime soon, is he?
Yeah, it's going to be a popular topic, Brandon. I wish we could put a $1 in an investment account for every time we're going to talk about Jake Fromm and Justin Fields charging at his heels over the next 2 or 3 years. But, we talked about this on the forum with some guys, and I realize it's a popular topic, but, to me, totally different than the Eason versus Fromm narrative of a year ago. Eason started 13 games in 2016 for Georgia. Fromm won 13 games in 2017 for Georgia, led them to an SEC title, led them to a Rose Bowl win, and led them into the overtime period at, against Alabama in the national championship. And I'm using the word led there a lot because it's the nuances of the quarterback position. Everybody can look at that offense and think that, Georgia rode Sony Michel, Georgia rode Nick Chubb to those big wins in 2017. And I might pull a Lee Corso not so fast, my friend, on all that, because Jake Fromm was the guy at quarterback. He was the guy doing a little bit, more than a little bit of checking out of pass plays and into runs and everything else, kind of setting up what he saw on the field with a coach's eye for a lot of those big plays. And he was the man in the huddle calling the plays and converting all those third downs and big plays against Oklahoma. I think that's invaluable experience. I think Justin Fields will produce a superhuman, near miracle type efforts to forge Fromm to find better play. But you got to remember as well, Jake Fromm, maybe the biggest leap in any athlete's career, especially at the SEC level, is what you do from your freshman season to your sophomore season. And that's really your first year of playing to your second year of playing. Fromm's going to get a whole lot better on his own. Fields is going to make Jake Fromm get a whole lot better. And to me, it's kind of funny how recruiting goes. This kind of teaches me a lot about recruiting as well. When you have a player like Jake Fromm, he's probably going to get on a lot of all-SEC preseason, all-SEC ballots for his efficient play in 2017. And everybody's kind of thinking that he could potentially even lose his job, Brandon, not just playing time. And I guess right now is a word of advice from old Jeff here to say, might want to pump the brakes on that one a little bit because there's a lot of way to go before everybody starts wondering about how many series that Justin Fields will take away from Jake Fromm in 2018.
I think it's a fascinating conversation, Jeff. Looking forward to doing that a lot with you in the weeks and months ahead, but also looking forward to seeing you on Thursday, a part of our DawgNation appreciation at the Coca-Cola Roxy Theater there at the Battery of Atlanta. Jeff, it's going to be a huge night. I'm glad you're a part of it, and I look forward to seeing you then.
Hey, guys, I look forward to seeing everybody out there as well, and I do thank everybody for the moment they gave Brandon and I today to tell everybody about Jack Eustace. Now, you guys go out and have a great week.
Thank you, Jeff.
Let's take a look around the rest of the league. This is SEC Through.
Appreciate Jeff Sentell as a part of our Marlowe's Tavern Tell-All. We do the Tavern Tell-All every Tuesday here on DawgNation Daily, and Jeff mentions DawgNation Appreciation, which comes up on Thursday. Of course, Marlowe's going to be a big part of that. Kroger is as well, and one of the things that Kroger wants you to be a part of when it comes to DawgNation Appreciation, your chance to ask your question to or have your question answered by Nick Chubb, Sony Michel, Roquan Smith, Davin Bellamy, or Lorenzo Carter, our special guest there for the night on Thursday. Simply submit your Kroger fan question to be used at a DawgNation Appreciation. If your question gets picked, we're going to read some on the stage there that night. Not only will you'll hear the answer to your question there on the stage, but you can also get a $25 gift card courtesy of Kroger. You don't have to be going to DawgNation Appreciation, by the way, to submit a question. If your question gets used, it's a $25 gift card. It's just a great way to make DawgNation Appreciation as interactive as possible. Of course, we appreciate Kroger just providing the opportunity to be able to do just that. Time for the SEC Through now. Make sure you check out SEC Country Live this afternoon, 3 p.m. Eastern Time, on both the SEC Country Facebook and YouTube pages. I'm on assignment here this week. Will not be on SEC Country Live. Looking forward to being back on Monday, but the show goes on without me today. And one of the stories they no doubt are going to be talking about, they may have talked about this yesterday. The truth is, we should have talked about this on DawgNation Daily yesterday. I don't know where my head was. Calvin Anderson, who was the Rice offensive lineman, who was transferring. We actually talked about this on Friday, that he was going to make his decision on Saturday. He was going to choose between Texas and Oklahoma, Michigan, Auburn. And if you're watching on video, you can see the commitment announcement. I actually thought this was kind of clever here. I don't quite know how they pulled this off, but it's like a Rubik's Cube thing where eventually it all gets pieced together. And when the Rubik's Cube kind of finally falls into place, now if you're younger, you may not realize the Rubik's Cube was a very popular toy back in the 80s when I was growing up. But when finally the Rubik's Cube is revealed, it shows all the different choices. But the ultimate pick for Calvin Anderson is Texas. Anderson's going to be a Longhorn, and it's obviously a big blow to Auburn that could have used Anderson on its offensive line. And maybe the biggest punch in the stomach of all for the Tigers here is what Anderson said. One of the main reasons why he chose Texas over the other schools is because of a chance to work with Herb Hand, the offensive line coach at Texas now. Many of you are probably aware that up until recently, Herb Hand had been Auburn's offensive line coach. So Auburn loses Hand to Texas, and then Hand pulls a big transfer offensive lineman that the Tigers could have used in 2018. I'm not telling you this is a death knell for Auburn necessarily, but it's certainly not it's certainly not good news because they could have used the graduate transfer offensive lineman. Speaking of grad transfers, that's a lot of what we're going to talk about here during our SEC through, because Tennessee also adds a grad transfer too. It's a running back this time, Madre London from Michigan State. He made this official on Twitter, saying with much consideration, officially committed to the University of Tennessee, hashtag go Vols, go Rocky Top. And listen, I think this is one of the things that Jeremy Pruitt's going to show you. He's a waiver wire worker. He's going to bring in these transfer guys. This is not a strong Tennessee roster, especially given the brand of football that Jeremy Pruitt wants to play. You need more bodies at virtually every position. They add Keller Crisp. They add Madre London here. I think this is a good pickup for Tennessee, not because London's going to be an all-SEC player, but because you want your roster to be as deep as it possibly can be. I'll say the same thing about South Carolina, who also picks up a graduate transfer, and another guy from Rice, by the way. Calvin Anderson from Rice ended up at Texas. Another Rice transfer, this time JT, I believe it's eBay? Maybe it's IBE, eBay as the way I'm going to go on that. On Instagram, he let it know that he's leaving Rice and going to South Carolina. I like bringing in these transfer guys from these academic schools. My assumption is that eBay's a pretty sharp guy. If you go to Rice, it seems like you have to be. So this is probably another good pickup for South Carolina. They need depth. Now, they've recruited pretty well in the defensive secondary the last couple of years. Jamias Williams for the class of 2017. He is hurt right now, not going through spring practice. 2018, including guys like J.C. Horn. So they've recruited well at the defensive back position, but they need guys who are ready to play right now. And that is what eBay will be, if I'm pronouncing the name correctly. I'll also mention one quick basketball note here, that Ole Miss is reported close to hiring Middle Tennessee State coach Kermit Davis. JOX, the sports radio station in Birmingham, Jim Dunaway, one of the hosts there, said that he's 95% done. Kermit Davis becoming the next Ole Miss coach. They'd obviously had some overtures to Thad Matta. The fact they're talking to someone else besides Matta means they know that Matta's not coming to Ole Miss. Does that mean he's coming to Georgia? I'm not sure we know that yet. He has reportedly been offered the Georgia job, but apparently not going to Ole Miss if that report is to be read, so maybe that's good news for Georgia. I'll also remind you to make sure you don't miss the International Auto Show in Atlanta coming up. You can shop, compare from hundreds of new cars, trucks, SUVs from over 25 major manufacturers. You can also see debuting models for 2019, the latest in alternative fuel vehicles, and some great special attractions. It's only once a year. It's 5 big days, March 21st to the 25th at the Georgia World Congress Center. Visit GoAutoShow.com for more info. And don't forget, I'm going to be there myself in person from 1 to 3 p.m. on Friday, March 23rd. I hope to see you there at the Atlanta International Auto Show. We'll make that your SEC through. And as we get ready to wrap up the show here today, a couple reminders for you. Of course, DawgNation Appreciation comes up on Thursday. Few tickets left. Go ahead and get them if you can. Nick Chubb, Sonny Michelle, Roquan Smith, Davin Bellamy, Lorenzo Carter, all going to be in the house there that night. DawgNation.com, the place to go for those tickets. If you can't be with us and you want your message heard on the screen there that night, submit us a video at DawgNation on Twitter and Instagram, or the email DawgNationSocial@gmail.com. Get those in very, very quickly, though, because today is the last day we can accept any of those if we want to get the video turned around to be able to be broadcast on the screen there that night. Also, make sure you check out the DawgNation Daily Double at the forum at forum.dawgnation.com, and the link at the show page at dawgnation.com when we post the show later on. I'll have more on Thad Matta as the possible next Georgia basketball coach. And, of course, don't forget, we do it every single day because we believe that good Georgia fans are Gator haters, first and foremost. 228 days from right now, Georgia beats Florida again. We'll see you tomorrow on DawgNation Daily. And I look forward to taking a bunch of comments. We got time to kind of roll through a lot of those. And, I want to take a moment here before we kind of get into the comments here as I kind of pull up YouTube and Facebook here. Thank you all for your patience in allowing me to talk about DawgNation Appreciation. Many of you have gotten your tickets. Many of you are making plans to be there on Thursday. Some of you live far away and you can't come. One way or another, I just appreciate you allowing us to use this forum to tell folks about this great event, because I am legitimately excited about what we're going to be able to do. I am so proud to share the stage that night with the 5 great former Georgia players going to be with us. And the folks here behind the scenes, many of which you don't know, you don't see them on camera, you don't hear their voices. You would not believe the tireless work that has gone in to making DawgNation Appreciation an incredible event. So I am very, very proud of this. I think it's the biggest thing we've ever done here on DawgNation Daily. I think it's the biggest thing in the history of our website. And I hope that for those of you who are going to be there, you have as much fun with it as I think you're going to. It's just going to be an incredible event, and I'm really excited about talking to you all about it and seeing as many of you as I can on Thursday. Some of you have reached out to me on social media about wanting to say hello. Trust me, if you don't see me before the event, I'll be in the lobby after the event. I want to say thank you to as many of you as I can who've made the decision to come out there that day. It's incredibly nice of you to be there, and I'm looking forward to seeing a whole bunch of you there on that day. Willie McGuire on YouTube says, thanks, DawgNation, for everything. Keegan Montgomery says, missing me at 3. Yeah, obviously I miss SEC Country Live as well. I love that show. I love talking to y'all on the show every single day, and I'm looking forward to being back on Monday. Got a couple special assignments I'm taking care of this week, so not able to do that, but really good. Let me hit a couple of the Facebook comments here as well. I'm trying to make sure I show plenty of love to the YouTube side of things, of course. Monty Moon says, do you think we can get elite basketball players, or do we need success on the court before success with recruits? I think that's probably a very fair question, because when we talk about, quote, good recruiting, there is sort of a secret to good recruiting that we probably don't acknowledge enough. Most good recruiters are at programs that are historically good at recruiting. Let me give you an example of this. And I'm not sure if anybody on our they're helping us out. Who was the most and maybe if you're watching, help me out with this. The most recent coach at Kansas. This is a great example. Who is the Kansas coach? Let's see if I can find his name. David Beatty. David Beatty came from Texas, and Beatty was considered a very good recruiter, but he's recruiting in a place, Texas, where they have a history of getting good recruits. He goes to Kansas, and he's been hired because of his recruiting skills. He's going to resurrect that program. Now, for a minute, he did have a commitment from Jamar Chase, which is probably better than Kansas could ever hope to do. But for the most part, Beatty hasn't been a good football recruiter at Kansas because that's a program that doesn't have a history of bringing in prospects. So good recruiter, bad program, you got a problem there. So at Georgia, which is not, from a basketball standpoint, as bad as Kansas is in football, but it's not a championship-level basketball program, the way that kind of is thought of that way in football, can good recruiting raise the fortunes of Georgia basketball, or is the history of not being in a lot of Final Fours, not having a lot of NCAA tournament success, not really a lot of former NBA players, is that kind of an anchor around the ankle of the program that kind of holds it down? The honest truth is, I'm not sure I really know. Now, obviously, there's an optimistic tone that Georgia fans want to strike of. Why can't it be Georgia? That's probably a fair question. There may be no legitimate reason that it can't be Georgia or that it shouldn't be Georgia. But I do think history is difficult to overcome. And in football, that's a good thing because the history sort of props up Georgia and holds it up and gives it a chance to not go too long without having a moment in the sun. In basketball, it's more of a current you have to swim against. And that's obviously what the next coach will have to deal with, whether it's Thad Matta or somebody else. Andrew Thomas, Emmanuel Jackson, speaking out on him. Yeah, listen, I was thinking about Andrew Thomas the other day. He's going to slide over and play left tackle in 2018, and I think that Thomas is just about as close to a sure thing as you can get, barring injury, and you better believe I'm going to come in here with a scowl on my face if I'm ever talking about an Andrew Thomas injury. But barring injury, I mean, what is there not to like about Andrew Thomas? I'll tell you a really quick funny story. My son is 6, and my daughter's 2. They are both in their own ways football fans. My son's really kind of gotten into it. My daughter just sort of, just likes whatever we like. But they get a kick sometimes out of watching some of our stuff here at DawgNation. And back leading up the national championship game, I did a one-on-one interview with Andrew Thomas. It was a stand-up interview, right? And so I'm a pretty big guy. I'm 6'2". I'm 200 whatever pounds, and so I'm standing there holding the microphone, and Andrew Thomas is just standing next to me, and he's a building. I mean, he's just huge, much taller than me, much bigger than me, much broader than me. And my kids, who think of me as being a giant, got a kick out of seeing somebody just tower over me. And so that gives you a sense of what Thomas brings to the table from a size standpoint. And I mean, what I've been told from people who pay more attention to the scouting side of it. This is a This is a technically proficient offensive lineman. The fact that Georgia wasted no time in saying, yes, he's our left tackle, he's going to move over there, essentially anointing him as starter, something that Kirby Smart's typically pretty loath to do. I think that speaks to Andrew Thomas being a pretty strong candidate for a great career at Georgia, parking in that left tackle spot for at least the next 2 years. Georgia fans may not get lucky enough to get a senior season from him. Eric Moody says, when does Sawyer graduate? Got to get him on campus as soon as possible. So, Eric, one thing to keep in mind here about Pace Academy, the school that Jamari goes to, that Andrew Thomas went to, that Trey Blunt went to, Pace Academy does not allow early enrollees. There are a few, most of them I would think are private schools. There are a few schools that have sort of academic rigor of such a nature that you got to do that second semester of your senior year to kind of get it all done. Pace Academy is one of those. So you don't get the early enrollee with Andrew Thomas, and you won't get that with Jamari Salyer. You didn't get that with Trey Blunt. The trade-off here is they're getting good coaching. Remember, in addition to is it Chris Spielman, who's the head coach there at Pace Academy? Terrence Edwards has worked with the wide receivers there. I mean, they got a whole bunch of well-pedigreed football guys coaching there. It's a good academic school. So you don't get the spring enrollment from the Pace Academy guys, but you get very mature players when they finally do arrive in the summer, both physically and, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, everything else. So I love early enrollees. If you're not going to be an early enrollee, then go through a curriculum like what they provide both academically and athletically at a Pace Academy, and I think you're going to be just fine. Danny Smith says that I didn't state my true way. Yeah, listen, I'm a little sensitive about that right now. I feel like that, seemingly the last year, the shirt's getting a little bit, more snug, gone up a size here and there. The desk hides it pretty well, and on DawgNation Daily for SEC Country Live, I don't quite have the same cover. So maybe I'm going to new year, new me myself. After I keep pushing back the date. Back in the fall, it's like once the season's over, and then it was once signing day's over, then it was once DawgNation Appreciation's over, and now it's going to turn into once G Day's over. Maybe at some point in time I'll get back to my fighting weight. Randy Hall says, do you think Notori Johnson moves to defensive tackle? No, I don't. I think he's an offensive lineman, and I think that he's still going to be heard from. I think that Notori is I think he's a fierce competitor. I think that, he came into Georgia, and we had Notori with us at a Marlowe's broadcast, and he was very candid in the fact that he was coming to earn playing time right away. That didn't quite happen for him. But and he was also, I guess one of those guys that may have had part of his development in the summer delayed just a little bit. But I still think very, very highly of Notori Johnson. I think offensive line's the place for him. And I would not be surprised if you don't start hearing Notori's name come up. Remember, Ben Cleveland was thought to be a disappointment. Young freshman, redshirted, wasn't really on his way to earning playing time a year ago in the spring. And all of a sudden everybody was like, well, what's wrong with Ben Cleveland? Why is he a bust? After really 1 year on campus, Ben Cleveland was sort of, had the bust label attached to him. And I get where that comes from. There's a lot of attention paid to these guys. You almost forget that. It seems like we've been talking about Ben Cleveland for 10 years. He's only been on campus now. This will be, going into his third year on campus, but it seems like he's been there, forever. But this time a year ago, he'd only been campus a year. And he was already sort of evaluated and in some people's mind cast off. A redshirt year for an offensive lineman is a really good thing. I think it's pretty obvious that Cleveland used his well because he was mauling people in November. I'm not telling you that Notori Johnson does what Ben Cleveland did, because the truth is Notori probably wasn't quite as regarded of a prospect coming out of high school, but I am not done with Notori Johnson yet, not by a long shot, at the offensive line position. Randy Hall says, but there's so many offensive guards. There are. I will remind you, though, what Seth Emerson wrote at DawgNation the other day, and I think this is an important point to bring up. You see Lamont Gilliard go from defensive tackle to offensive line and do well. You don't always see the offensive lineman, or you rarely see the offensive lineman slide over to defensive line and do well. I don't think that door swings both ways. I really don't. I think it is easier, and I'll give you an example of this. We talked about Trayvon Walker with Jeff Sentell. Y'all look at Trayvon on Twitter. He's got a couple highlights of himself from basketball. I mean, he's Anthony Davis. He's blocking shots. He's, I mean, he's ferocious. There's one video where he swats a shot and knocks the guy down, and he sort of stands over the guy when it's all said and done. I mean, this is a big time specimen on the basketball court. Double-digit points and rebounds per game. I don't know how many offensive linemen you see doing that. You see defensive linemen with that kind of quickness and that kind of prowess on a basketball floor. How many offensive linemen have you known that are good basketball players? And to me, that's an example of it's just a different skill set. There's a quickness and an athleticism that we expect from defensive linemen that we don't necessarily expect from offensive linemen. We just want our offensive linemen to be maulers, but we don't necessarily we look for different things from defensive linemen. So. Yeah, Georgia's got a lot of guards. There's no question about that. And in fact, even some of the guys that are currently listed at tackle may end up being guards too. But finding 5 good offensive linemen is not easy. Sometimes you need a glut just to get down to a good 5. Alan Verbanchik says Isaiah Wilson had some issues talking about the let me read this comment one more time because I pretty well butchered that. Alan Verbanchik says Isaiah Wilson had some issues adjusting to the Georgia heat. I think that probably is true. Although, New York City, we got into a whole thing about this last year. Obviously, like up in the Northeast, you can sometimes have cold summers or mild summers. New York City's pretty hot during the summer. I mean, you can have some pretty big humidity, but obviously, it may not be much of a comparison to Georgia, where that heat index goes up, around late May and stays there until November. That's a little bit different kind of thing. And at one point in time, Kirby Smart had even said that he thought that Isaiah Wilson was practicing indoors better than outdoors. That was, for me, code language for his conditioning's not what it needs to be. The heat's a little rough for him. In fact, it may have been more conditioning related than heat. Saying it was heat related may have just been a generous explanation. I think Isaiah's another guy that can be heard from again. In fact, I haven't read the piece, but I believe there is one of those questions of the day up at DawgNation today about the chances of another freshman for starting at Georgia right tackle this season, which would obviously be Isaiah Wilson. And if I had to guess, and this is just a guess, my guess is that Isaiah Wilson is probably the point spread favorite to start at right tackle. Arlen Block says he fat shames himself too. Yeah, that's nice to know. I'm glad I'm not the only one. Enrique Murillo saying that I'm trying to help make the DawgNation appreciation event be the best it can possibly be. Yeah. Boy, I can't wait for it, y'all. I'm really, really excited. I am so proud that so many of you are going to be able to be there. I'm just really looking forward to that. Arlen Block says he's would love to be at the event, but got to pay the bills. Totally understand that, Arlen. We'll try to do a lot of these kinds of things so you can have maybe a chance to be with us sometime in the future. We appreciate you working hard out there and taking care of business. Arlen says he will be at a G-Day, though. That's good to hear. Really good to hear on that. I'm excited about G-Day, too. Really excited about that. We hope to be able to announce some of the stuff that we're doing for G-Day later on. I think we're going to do some cool stuff. I'm really kind of excited about that. Chad Clark says Eddie's putting on a few pounds too. Yeah. Unfortunately, from Dan Mullen's perspective, Mullen would say the blind squirrel only occasionally finds the nut, but Eddie chomped down on a bunch of these things in 2017, and he's expecting to chomp down a few more in 2018 here as well. So, yeah, that's going to be incredible as Eddie continues to sort of pack on the pounds. And when it comes to the blind squirrel, that's a good thing. When it comes to the host, not quite such a good thing. By the way, I should have said this during the regular show. Let me say this now. I think I'm okay to announce this. I am really excited to announce that, and this is not a joke. This is completely serious, although not serious, but it is actually going to happen. Eddie is going to be at DawgNation Appreciation. I'm not sure that's like an unveiling I'm supposed to do in some special time. For those of you watching us on video right now, I will tell you, and you can be the first to know, that Eddie is going to be at DawgNation Appreciation, a sort of bigger, more life-size version of the Eddie that I keep on the desk here every single day. So if you've ever wanted your picture taken with Eddie, Eddie will be at DawgNation Appreciation. You just have to see it to believe it. It is going to be another wild example of why DawgNation Appreciation is going to be so much fun. I probably haven't done enough explaining about the sponsor village here, but before the event, Tailgate apparel, by the way, I've got my tailgate sweatshirt on today. David Green going to be signing autographs in our tailgate apparel booth. Former Georgia wide receiver Terrence Edwards, who I mentioned actually a moment ago, he's going to be signing autographs in addition to, at no additional charge, getting in the building that day. Lorenzo Carter signing autographs. Davin Bellamy selling his Humble Yourself t-shirts. With the purchase of one of those t-shirts, you can get an autograph from Davin. You can also either get him to sign the t-shirt or sign your outside item if you'd like to. So it's just one of the reasons why DawgNation Appreciation is just going to be so big and so much fun. It's going to be awesome. Joel Moody says the Blind Squirrel t-shirts. So here's the backstory on the t-shirts. I've actually got a couple of t-shirts in the pipeline already. So the problem is like I occasionally run afoul of my bosses with the number of t-shirts that we print and things along those lines. So I've actually got 2 t-shirts that are going to be really great. I'm going to be unveiling these over the course of the next few weeks. And I would imagine that I really hope to be able to do a Blind Eddie t-shirt. My guess is that may be a little closer to the start of the season if I had to guess. I also heard, and we had a meeting the other day about something else we might be able to do, which is going to be really fun if we ever get a chance to do that. So I'll tell you more about that when I can. But we've got some great t-shirts coming up. And the great news is that from now on, when we do t-shirts, they're going to be free of charge. We're going to have a sponsor pay for them, and the sponsor's going to kind of put them out there for us. And it's just one of the great things that DawgNation does. Obviously my bosses, if they could, they'd charge you $50 for them. But I said, can we find a way to give these things to people? Let's try to make these things free. Let's try to make them, a part of what we're doing here. And so the great news is they've kind of, to use a bigger word than I should, they've acquiesced. And so the great news is we've got more t-shirts coming, and they will be free of charge. That's awesome. Jill Cobb Burke says, can I get a Humble Yourself shirt somewhere? I'm teaching in Savannah, can't make the event. Yeah, Davin's got to have a web address, right? I'll try to search that, Jill, and see what I can find for you. But yeah, I would say that Davin's got to have a web address where he's selling those. Bob Paquette says he's coming to the Vanderbilt game this year. He says looking for a place to stay that weekend. Pretty much all the hotels are booked. Yeah, it is hard to find a hotel in Athens these game weekends. The cool thing is the surrounding area, they're sort of making more hotels now. Even if you have to go into like Commerce or, if you're coming up 85, browsing somewhere like that, you might be able to find a hotel and make the drive over. So the good news is those sort of exit hotels on either 316 or 85, they're getting built up a little bit more now. So that's probably a good thing. All right, so we got to go for right now. Thanks for being with us. Check out SEC Country Live this afternoon at 3 p.m. I won't be there, but I appreciate you still stopping by and keeping that show afloat. We'll have the show posted, the podcast here at DawgNation.com. Of course, Apple Podcasts, all the other devices where you check out the show. Daily Double coming up here as well. I'm going to have more on the Thad Matta situation and kind of what's next for Georgia on that. And, of course, I'll see you back again tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. for another edition of DawgNation Daily Live. In between now and then, make sure you check out DawgNation.com and get your tickets for DawgNation Appreciation. See you Thursday, and then tomorrow at 10 a.m. Y'all have a great day.